Welcome to the podcast From Girl to Great. I'm your host, Alana Kendall. This episode features Grace Vinton, a healthcare PR professional, patient advocate, and the host of the podcast HITea with Grace. Grace's career journey really stood out to me because she transitioned from studying communications and government to shaping the healthcare industry in such a big way. What I loved most about this conversation was Grace's bold approach to her work and how she uses her unique strengths to create change. As someone who's learning how to navigate the healthcare world myself, her advice about staying informed and making connections was super helpful. If you're interested in healthcare, PR, or just need a boost of inspiration, this episode is packed with practical advice. And don't forget to check out Grace's podcast called HITea with Grace. I've added the link in the show notes. Now, let's dive in. Hi, Grace. Welcome to From Girl to Great. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Grace Vinton. I'm a healthcare PR pro, patient advocate, and podcast host of HITea with Grace, where we spill the tea on HITea.
Great. Thank you very much. Could you please tell me a bit about your educational path?
Absolutely. So I started my educational career in communications and government. So I studied broadcast journalism and then politics and policy. And then I went on to get my master's in communications and leadership. And from there, I got an unpaid internship at a publishing house where I helped promote motivational books. And my first week as an unpaid intern, I got one of the motivational books on Oprah, which was a big deal at the time. And from there, they actually promoted me to head of the entire department. It was when the economy crashed. And so there weren't a lot of people that were cheap, and I was cheap. So they hired me in to do that. And then early on in my career, I was recruited to help lead the public relations program for Elsevier, the nation's largest healthcare publisher. And that really gave me this amazing experience of being able to build out communications that help save lives. And so I thought, why would I do marketing and PR and communications when I could be doing marketing and PR and communications that save lives? And so that's where I really started to grow and find my purpose. And since then, I've worked with over 50 companies, helping them tell their stories in healthcare, pharma, and life sciences.
Wow, that's really impressive. Did you ever think you'd get into healthcare?
Absolutely not. It's definitely, it never crossed my mind that when you didn't have a degree in science or in medicine, that you could be in healthcare and you could really help it grow. But I realized early on that they needed my skill set. In fact, what I was lacking was my superpower, which was being able to take complex thoughts and complex innovations and make them understandable. It made me really successful at doing the job that I was put to do in healthcare.
Could you tell me what skills or experiences do you think are most valuable for young women to gain to be successful?
I think you need to be a really good writer. You have to be a really great and prolific reader because you need to be able to stay on top of trends and innovations in the space and different things that are happening. Be a great writer, be a great reader, and be a great connector. You really need to be able to, as much as you can, connect with others in the industry that are doing it better than you so that you can learn from them and level up your game.
Could you please explain more about what you're doing for those 50 companies to help them?
Absolutely. So through the years, I've helped them build out their communications plans. There's a lot going on in healthcare and pharma and life sciences. So much of it is happening in the dark. People have no idea research and innovations that are around there. And so where I fit in is I help companies understand, what are you doing? Let's figure out, one, what are you doing? What exactly are you doing today? Not just what are you doing down the road or what you'd like to do, but what are you doing today? And how can you talk about it in a way that makes people sit up and think? And how can you show the bench strength that you have in your company of all these amazing leaders? You know, what topics can they talk about in the industry, in the media, and on podcasts in a way that would really help the industry understand who you are and what you stand for? And so companies have just hired me throughout the years through Amendola Communications to basically help them build out those communications plans and then help also strategically connect them with media and analysts in the space. It's really interesting because in this kind of storytelling work that I've done throughout the years, you help shape industry categories because the media are asking you, okay, so what are the trends going on? You're working with so many different companies. What are you hearing? And analysts are saying, are you hearing this? Is it care orchestration or is it an interoperability or what should we be focusing our next reports on? So it's very interesting to be sitting in on a lot of the different innovations happening in the space, helping people craft their messages and then helping the industry understand what's going on. The industry doesn't know what's happening. And then they may not ever use these innovations that could help them do their job better and save lives.
Wow, I've never really heard of that before. It's really interesting. If you could go back in time and give advice to your 17-year-old self, what would it be?
I would tell myself to be bold. When I was 17 or 18, and then when I was in my unpaid internship, I got lucky in that I was bold. And I just said, you know what, I'm going to reach out to Oprah with this book. And that did very well for me. But then once I was hired, I got a little bit shy. And there were times where I was at big meetings with important executives and I'd have an idea and I'd hold it back and I wouldn't say it. And then somebody else would say it. And typically it was a man in the room next to me or at the other side of the table. And I'd think to myself, why didn't I say that? I had that idea. Now he said it and I couldn't even get credit for it. So speak up. If you have an idea, say it. If it's a stupid idea, at least it's a starting point. And maybe it's not a stupid idea. Maybe it's a really great idea. And eventually when I realized that I was doing that, I got out of that cycle. Then I said, I need to trust myself and trust my knowledge base and trust that I know what I'm doing. And that's why I'm here. And so just be bold. Don't try to limit yourself just because of your insecurities. See whatever you have as your superpower. Another thing I'd say is early on in my career, I took the Strengths Finder test. And the Strengths Finder test, you can just find it online. It's free. But it'll tell you what your strengths are and what strengths you bring to a team. And I loved that in particular because I knew that my strength was decisiveness. But my weakness was that I needed somebody to help me with some of the details. And so throughout my career, I've always had a right-hand person that was great at details, but they were indecisive. And so I was great at being decisive, right? And so when you know your strengths and you play into your strengths, then you really have a way better opportunity at succeeding and doing well. So check out the Strengths Finder test. It's a great way for you to know when you're getting into your career, what am I great at? And leaning into that and really taking advantage of that and making that help you grow.
Thank you. That sounds amazing. I should check that out.
Absolutely. And starting my podcast, I was able to learn from so many amazing women leaders because I interview women leaders and also patients and caregivers in healthcare technology. And learning from them and seeing what they do to succeed helped me succeed. So if you ever have a thought of maybe starting a podcast on whatever topic and whatever industry you're looking to get in, just do it. Honestly, you'll grow a community, you'll grow your network, and you'll level up because the types of people that you'll be learning from and interviewing, it's not easy to get a spot at the table with them. And they're just sharing their insights so freely and generously. And that has honestly helped me as well in my career, is just podcasting itself. It's been a beautiful complement to the work that I do my day to day.
You've been very successful in your field. Being successful comes with experiencing some challenges and failure. Is there anything you'd like to share with listeners about times that you've not succeeded and what you've learned from that?
Oh, absolutely. I think in marketing and communications, in healthcare is very boring. There's a lot of boring problems. There's a lot of boring solutions. And yet at the end of the day, they're saving lives, and that's not boring. I think for me, I had to figure out, there are so many things that I had to do to say, okay, can I be fun here? Or do I need to be serious here? And so for in terms of healthcare communications, that's something that I constantly had experiences with. Like I'm trying something and it not going well and then pivoting, right? And that's the power of the pivot. It's like there's no failure big enough that you can't pivot from. So if you do have challenges, which they will come your way, don't let the fear of experiencing failure keep you from being bold. Just do it. And if you need to pivot and pivot well.
Do you think that some of the challenges you've faced have been different because you're a woman?
Yes. I think that as a woman, sometimes especially early on in my career, people would look at me and expect less from me But I started to realize that I could use that to my advantage. And then once I started to really just speak my mind and just be bold, people could see that I had a lot to offer. So I think that if you let people look down on you and then you just decide to step into that narrative and be that narrative, that's what you'll become. Your thought pattern and what you choose to be really impacts who you actually end up being in your career and in your life. So I think, yes, being a woman is a challenge, being a woman in business and trying to succeed, but just be yourself. Another thing is I'm very feminine. I wear brightly colored clothing. And I once had someone say, "You're quite intelligent for a woman that wears such brightly colored clothing."
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, oh my, are you kidding me? He's an old school person. But I realized this industry is very traditional. And so I'm breaking the mold in many ways. And I'm okay with that. I realize I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea. But at the same time, I do realize there's sometimes where I need to be respectful to the way people do things. I think as a woman, it's tricky to stay in your femininity while also being a boss. And I'd recommend just doing it because being true to yourself, you'll never regret that at the end of the day. I regret the times where I chose to just be more traditional and not fully be myself in any situation. I think you just have to bring yourself to the table because who you are is unique and you're there for a reason. And they need to see who you are because at the end of the day, that's when you bring the most value.
Yeah, we can be the change. I love being bold in what I wear and wearing color. I love the feminism of that. I don't think that should change.
I have to say that the future generation, all of you guys are way better at this than your predecessors, but we're paving the way. We're wearing color. We're wearing whatever we want so that you guys can wear whatever you want and keep being who you are. I have to say, I am constantly inspired by the generation that's coming after me and how just unabashed they are with their opinions, with their choices of clothing, with their boundaries that they set at work. So yeah, lean into that.
We're also very inspired by you, Grace.
Thank you.
As a woman, there's so many options of what you can wear, which is really fun and creative to explore.
Absolutely. Could you imagine just wearing a black suit every day? There are people that are black suit people every day, and that's wonderful. Be you. Whatever's authentic to you, be that.
Is there anything unique you did during your educational journey, maybe in college, that you think really stands out and expresses who you are and also stands out to employers?
I studied abroad every summer. And so instead of taking off in the summer, I had jobs and I also studied abroad. And that really stood out when I went to go get my internship. People said, wow, I can't believe that you study abroad. And during the summer, it helped me graduate earlier because I had extra credits. I also had work experience from studying abroad and then working where I was studying. And so I would say, take the time that you have in college and don't just take a break when you have a break. Find a way to travel or find a way to work, find a way to get real life experience that would create some value for a future employer.
Yeah. Is it Spain that you went or?
I went to Oxford in the UK.
Oh, wow.
And then I went to Guatemala.
That's so nice.
Yeah, it was a great experience. And honestly, I look back on those times and I had fun. I also I made money and it helped me pay for college education. And I also just got a ton of credits done so I could finish school early. So it was practical and fun, but do your best to try to just make yourself super employable.
So Grace, thank you so much for taking the time to be a guest on my show. The show is to educate young women about what they can do to be successful in their future, particularly in the healthcare space, which you're in. Is there anything else that you would like to share with these young women?
Absolutely. I'd say another huge thing that I've learned from the different people that I've interviewed through the years that are leaders in the space is that it's really important to take care of your body. Get good sleep, work out, eat good food, just take care of yourself and your body. Because all of the leaders that I know are not pushing themselves to the limits and expecting their body to keep up with that. If you really want to succeed and you want to do well in life, take care of the body that is helping enable you to do that. So that's a big piece of advice I give for anybody after hearing all these leaders. Every leader that I've spoken to has some type of workout regimen or some type of juice that they juice, but they have something that helps keep them at the top of their game in terms of their physical bodies. It's not about looking whatever. It's about being healthy. And so just find ways to be healthy and make one healthy choice every day.
Thank you again for giving your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of From Girl to Great with my guest, Grace Vinton. Don't forget you can find links to everything we discussed in our show notes, including links to Grace's podcast called HITea with Grace, where she spills the tea on HITea. And HITea stands for Healthcare Information Technology. And remember to follow this show wherever you get your podcasts and check out fromgirltogreat.com for more episodes and information. Goodbye now.